You're listening to the Player Issue Podcast. Here's your host, Aaron Warwick.
G'day everybody, welcome back to the Player Issue Podcast. I'm your host as always, Aaron Warwick, back for episode number 18. Yes, it has been about 2 months now since our last episode, so I really apologise for that. Don't know if you can still hear it in my voice or not, but I'm actually getting over a cold that just wouldn't go away. Rather frustrating. I wasn't allowed to go to work, which, blessing in disguise, managed to get a few things done at home, but being sick, my throat took a little bit of a hit, and I wasn't able to really get through an interview without really struggling with my voice until just last weekend. But however, did come back again, and I wasn't able to record the open and close for this episode until now, which is really rather painful because I did the interview about nearly 2 weeks ago, I believe. So a bit frustrating having it sitting here and not being able to get it out to you guys and have you listen and hope you enjoy it. And this gentleman that I have a chat to today, I only really learnt about this guy probably 3 or 4 months ago. I actually put a jumper up for raffle on the Lotto auction page, or the Lotto Guernsey page. Can't remember what it's called now. Sorry about that, Tommy. If you've been on there before, it's a really, really good page. You simply just buy a ticket for a jumper for a certain amount, and you're in the raffle basically to win a nice, cheap player issue jumper or match worn jumper. So I've done a few on there, and some great jumpers have been handed out to some really good people. And that's where I met my guest today. And so this is going to be a rather interesting interview because this bloke hasn't been collecting for too long, and you're going to hear exactly how long is not very long very shortly. So I won't give you too much information. Of course, after the interview, we'll come back and we'll cover off everything that we usually do in every other episode, but we'll also cover a few little things that we've been able to get a little bit of snippet from some of the manufacturers' contracts and things like that, but can't give away too much. I'm not allowed to. I've been told I can't give you too much information, but I'll give you as much as I can without giving away too much. But anyway, that's enough of me jibber-jabbering. Let's get on with today's interview. Hope you enjoy the guest. I really enjoyed his insights into some things, and as a new collector, what exactly he thinks of the hobby. So I quite enjoy it, and I hope you will too. So here is our chat with Josh Waight. All right, Josh, how are we going, brother?
I'm really good, thank you, mate. I'm really well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm awesome. It was an absolutely beautiful day here about a minute and a half ago when I jumped on here, but it's just gone really muggy on me all of a sudden.
Well, I'm from Ballarat. I'm not sure you'd be too familiar with it, but I know the Victorian listeners would, and we're notorious for bad weather, but it's actually quite a nice day today. So, yeah, well. Very rarity, but yeah, a nice winter's day in Ballarat. Who would believe it? A good day for the footy that you're still not allowed to attend. Damn straight.
Sorry, there's a bit of a jab there, because,
I know.
West Oz isn't allowed to go very shortly.
I'm so jealous. I miss it so badly.
Alright, before you jump off and run away from me, we'll get on with it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Alright, man, so who do you support for all those who don't know who you are, and why do you support them?
Yes, for all of those that don't know, my name is Josh Waight. I am a Richmond Tigers nut. I run the Facebook page for the Richmond FC Guernsey Collector page on Facebook, as well as Jozzie's Jumpers on Instagram. Yeah. I'm a mad Richmond fan. I'll be honest, I don't come from an overly religious family, but sport was something that I had absolutely passed down on me from my father's family. And whether I liked it or not, I was a Richmond man, and it was what it was. So those first 15 to 20 years, I'm only 26. Oh, my birthday the other day. I'm 26 now. Thank you, mate. So those early days were pretty rough going, but it was certainly worth going through all of that for the last 3 or even a little bit longer years of how we've performed and got to see us play. So yeah, a lot of hard work, but yeah, I'm glad. It was all worth it to get a couple of premierships.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still very much on the fence with that, so I won't be getting one anytime soon, but I'm sure you'll be absolutely loving it as a Tigers supporter. So
I am, yeah, it's really good. Great time to support the Tigers.
All right, so as you know, we're here as a football jumper collecting podcast.
Yep.
So obviously you're here to talk jumpers with us today. So what made you start collecting jumpers?
I was a little bit of a weird one. I've always been a footy nut, but I've never really genuinely collected things. Like, I've got millions of bits and bobs and a heap of old retail jumpers, but they were always jumpers that I would just wear and they would get stained and dirty and filthy and ripped and worn. So I didn't really ever keep them. I would sort of pass them down to a younger cousin or sibling or something like that, and when they're done, they'd just go up in the wardrobe, and that was pretty much it. But I've known Andy Munro for, I'm sure everybody, a lot of the listeners would be familiar with Andy Munro. He's a very good man.
He's the podcast #1 fan, I think.
I know, you need to get him on. I did tell him that the other day.
We have asked him, but he's a bit shy, old Andy. So
yeah, he is.
Yeah, pushing him and give him a bit of a nudge, we can get him on, I reckon.
I'll give him an extra push this afternoon. He was very eager to hear how I went. But yeah, I've been friends with Andy through other football and sports forums for maybe 6, 7, 8 years. A really, really long time I've known Andy for. And he just invited me to like his Instagram page one day, and I gave it a like, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And the little write-ups that Andy would put on the players and coming from his part of South Australia, and I just thought, this is really, really, really cool. And I come across a 2019 Richmond retail jumper that was signed by the whole team. And it was listed for, I think it was $600-700 at first, which I thought, that's not too bad, but I won't jump on it. And then it all of a sudden got listed for $300. So I thought, wow, all right, I'll jump on this. So that was the first jumper I brought. And then I was telling Andy about it and started doing a little bit of research of other Instagram and Facebook pages. And I thought, hey, this is actually pretty cool. Like, there's actually people that collect all of these jumpers. I didn't even know it was a thing. And then I just sort of got hooked. And then I reckon I brought about 3 or 4 jumpers within the space of a week straight after that. And then it's really weird. I've heard you said on the podcast previously, it's like you get addicted. It just, yeah, you get hooked in and you just get sucked in, and then all of a sudden you find yourself opening up your Facebook and refreshing the groups or seeing what tags you've got, and yeah, checking out eBay, having your searches on eBay, refreshing the Gumtree, all those other things that I'm sure everybody else does, and it just becomes part of your, better check what's on the market today. And then, yeah, once you start getting a few ones or, it's weird as well, like, even just when you have a post that you put up of a jumper that you feel is pretty special and you get some likes and comments and that sort of stuff and other people, like, think it's cool, it feels good. Like, obviously, don't want to be a show off or anything like that, but it's just good when you're like, I think this is awesome, but so do a lot of other people as well. And it's just, you sort of chase that a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, usually the first thing I do as soon as I get a jumper in is I'll take it out back, take a photo, make sure I'm happy with the photos, merge them together, you know, make it look pretty, make it look nice, and then I want to make sure everyone else has a look at it as well. I don't know why, it just gives you that feeling like, hey, look at what I've just picked up, I'm really stoked with it. Hopefully you guys are too. But either way, I just like that I can see it.
I also think it's a bit of the culture as well. I don't know if we can call it a culture of collectors or something like that, but you do know when you put something up that's pretty cool or special that people are going to like it as well. Like, even, I don't know if you've recently seen, I managed to get a Jack Rewalt match worn from the inaugurals Maddie's match, which ironically is on today. And I just thought that was really cool. And whilst I was waiting for it to arrive, I was like, I'm going to post this one in the group. Like, this is a cool one to put up in the group. And like, you sort of like, you wait to get it so you can do that, as corny as that sounds, but it's cool. And you enjoy seeing other people's stuff, and you're like, how on earth did they get a hold of some of these jumpers? I know, yeah, even, I think it was a Mal Michael premiership one that you put up amongst some other ones the other day, and I just thought that was unreal. That was really, really cool.
Yes, they come out of nowhere as well, which is exactly what the hobby's about. Sometimes it's, you just got to stop looking for jumpers in particular and just wait and see what falls in your lap, and sometimes absolute beauties really do. So, and yes, having these Facebook pages and things will definitely help that as well. I found obviously when I started collecting, I had to do a lot of legwork, but obviously having these pages and things made it a lot easier because people started coming to me. So that was a huge, huge advantage.
It's really cool when that happens, isn't it? It's only happened to me a few times, but like, I've literally got jumpers that they've come to me, like saying, hey, I've got this, are you interested in it? And often a lot of those jumpers that you do get those messages, they don't make it onto the groups or the marketplace or eBay or anything like that. This is like somebody just has it and just thinking, oh, well, this page like collects them. I wonder if I can sell it to them. And then you end up scoring yourself some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, without doubt. And the funny thing is, before when you mentioned that it turns into a bit of addiction where you start just looking at the pages and eBay and things like that all the time. While I was sitting on here waiting for yourself to come on, I was actually checking eBay and Gumtree and seeing what was going on. So
if you have a look
absolutely right.
Yeah, if you have a look at my Instagram page, whilst I was actually doing the same thing, I literally just put up a post of that Jack Rewalt jumper. So I was literally sitting here just doing, not quite looking, but more posting of my recent acquisition.
So actually, before we get too far into this, so it sounds like you've been collecting for a little while, but let's just tell the listeners out there that you're actually a very new collector.
Yeah, I'm honestly really, really new to the game. I sort of started that jumper that I was speaking about earlier, that first retail one that I got that at the end of January. So I literally only started, that was the first jumper that I got, and I think my first player issue or match worn was in Feb. So yeah, I'm still very new to the game and I'm learning so much. There's still so much to learn. But yeah, in terms of how long I've been doing it for, I'm absolutely still in that rookie status.
But like everyone, you got to start somewhere. So it's
you
really
do, mate.
You're on it already, but you already know exactly what goes on and how to do it properly. So I've seen you around, and it's been quite entertaining to watch yourself pick up all these new jumpers. So
thank you, mate. I've sort of learned as well, reputation and just doing things the right way is so important. Like it's everything, and like I believe in karma as well. If you're going to look after and you're going to help other people, they're more likely to help you out back as well. And a lot of people, they just like want to help others, and then they're more likely to sort of help you and scratch your back in return as well. And it feels good. There's jumpers that come up sometimes, and like I personally, it might be a different team or a different era or a different generation or from a different region that I'm just not for me, but I'm like, oh, I know somebody would absolutely love that jumper. And yeah, it's cool when you actually see them get it as well. You always send them a sneaky little message of nice jumper, winky face or something like that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, man. I mean, that's exactly what most of us collectors feel and think. If you scratch one's back, I'm sure it'll come back your way. So, no, it's perfect the way you look at it, and it's really good to hear. And I have just got something pop up on my screen that needs to bugger off so I can see it. But no, actually, you jumped a bit ahead of me. So I had a question. I should have known it would come up, to be honest, because it is very new. So I had this question I was going to pull out later on. However, you mentioned the Jack Rewalt, and it is a beautiful jumper.
Yes.
And I love the fact that when you put it up on your page that you had a little write-up like Andy does. But you had a little write-up. You had a little write-up explaining as to why it was special and why it was special to yourself in general. Tell everyone why that particular jumper is so special.
Yeah, so I'm just not sure how familiar that everybody is with the Maddie's Match jumper or what sort of happened with Maddie Rewalt, but she tragically did pass away in 2005 and had quite a rare form of cancer. And on the back of her passing, to raise awareness to Maddie Rewalt's vision, I'm not 100% sure whether it was sort of Nick Rewalt, but Nick Rewalt was one of the large people really behind it, as well as the entire Rewalt family, to raise awareness as well as money to go towards Maddie Rewalt's vision. And 2015, the year that Jack wore that jumper, was the year that she tragically passed away. So that was the inaugural and the very first Maddie's Match. Jack actually played really well that day. Richmond also won. But I just thought it was really special to have a jumper with a story like that. Like at the end of the day, it might just be a bit of material. It's a BLK, and it's the yellow that I really, really don't like, but it's the story that's behind it that says so much. And I'll be completely honest, I didn't actually even completely believe that it was match worn. I just thought that it would have been so significant and so special to that Rewalt family. I just thought, how is this even there? But through a lot of photos matching and having a look, I was actually able to discover he wore 2 different jumpers in that game.
Yep.
And there's a very large Grippo stain right above the Jeep logo and just goes into the 2 E's on the Jeep, and it's exactly where it is. So,
Perfect.
yeah, which is, like, there is a COA with it. It's not an AFL Players Association COA, so I'm always, like a little bit like, yeah, it's a COA, but at the end of the day, anybody can write up something like that if it's not an AFL Players Association one. And I know you've got your opinion on the COAs as well, but it's still, just because there's a COA doesn't mean that it's it's legit. But having the photo match and actually being able to see those exact stains as well as the jumper itself, I've got no doubt in my mind that it's legitimate match worn. So it just felt really good knowing and seeing, because there was a part of me that thought, how is this jumper even out there? Like, where is it? But yeah, the fact that he wore two, I wouldn't know, but I would imagine that, yeah, Jack or the Reward family would have the other one.
Yeah, you would think so. Being the inaugural one, you would think it would probably be framed up and put in the lounge room or something like that. But yeah, no, you're right. It is an incredibly special jumper and an incredibly special story. And yeah, it's good to hear those stories sometimes, because, you know, that we do have listeners on here that will jump on and have a listen, but aren't necessarily across exactly what the games are played for, or why the jumper is so special to some. So this is exactly why we have this format and platform, so people can express why certain things are so special to them, and others can listen to it and, you know, and understand us crazy collectors sometimes.
Yeah, it's not just a random footy jumper. Like, there's stuff behind it, and even the simplest of player issue jumpers. It could be a premiership year, a best and fairest season, a Coleman medal winning year. It could be even, I got a Daniel Connors jumper from Richmond, which Daniel Connors had a troublesome career off the field. It's probably a fair way to put it. He ended up getting sacked from the Richmond Football Club. But I've got a player issue jumper from the season that he and Dusty got into quite some significant trouble off the field and ended up copping suspensions for. So even though that doesn't have the beauty or the romance of the story behind the Jack Rewalt one, it's still like, this guy was great friends with Dusty Martin. Like, he and Dusty were getting in some trouble off field, and that was the player issue jumper. Meanwhile, I don't have a Dusty jumper, but Dusty's obviously gone on to create his own records. But it's just those little stories that you get behind them all, which is pretty cool to see, or even just read other people talk about the stories of the jumpers that they have.
Yeah. You mentioned Connors. He's the one who got into a few scraps on the training track as well, did he not?
Yeah, he had a troublesome career. I think he just didn't rock up to training one day. He went out with a few other players. I don't want to say names that are incorrect, but I know Dusty was one of them. I'm almost certain that Luke McGuan was another one, and yeah, they had a few off-field problems. But I also know that he's sort of, Daniel Connors is in with that Dane Swan, Dustin Martin group, and you see them sometimes putting up photos together and that sort of stuff. So he's obviously still in with a lot of them. It was a very talented player, but yeah, I guess just AFL wasn't for him.
Just enjoyed having fun more, so you can't argue that really, can you?
His career, listen, at the end of the day, if he decides to make those decisions, then it ultimately affects him, and it affects the fans as well. But yeah, some players are just, that's who they are.
That's right. And actually, you brought up the COAs as well. And I talk about COAs pretty much every episode, but it always seems to happen. But what you mentioned actually was absolutely perfect. I mean, you have a COA, which is great, and in your mind, you know, it's cool if you ever try to sell it and someone will say, oh, he's got a COA. Yep, you've got one. And you may get extra dollars for it. But then in your mind, you're thinking, oh, I don't know, just not sure about it, not 100%. But what you did was perfect. And photo matching could not be any more an obvious answer to, is this match worn or not? So, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. And the COA debate will go on forever, but if you could photo match something, it's perfection. So, yeah.
And another thing that you've mentioned as well is, like, I know you said that anybody could just go run out in the backyard and slide along a bit of dirt and get some dirt patches along their back. Like, yeah, you know what? Anybody can do that. But the likelihood of getting the exact same lines and marks and where it stops and ends and that's, it's just, if anybody goes for that effort, good on you, but I just think it's almost impossible to get to have a jumper that you've photo match and then being able to perfectly put a stain that matches that one to the exact way.
That's right.
It's near on impossible.
That's right. I actually owned a 2011 Luke Ball Grand Final jumper. And
I've seen that one.
when I got that, it was just absolutely covered in mud and dirt stains, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I had a COA with it, but the COA was, from just a normal shop that was selling it. So it actually went up on eBay recently, not for myself, but I actually sold it to this gentleman.
I did see it, yeah.
a year or so ago, and he threw a lot of money at me. So at the time I was going to America, I just said, "All right, no worries, I'll give up. You win."
You have to
and he said to me that he was going to wash the jumper.
that hurts me.
It hurts big time, and I almost said, "Nah, look, I can't let you have it because you're going to wash it because the dirt stains on it are incredible." But unfortunately, $1,500 overdid me. But so I saw it come up, and it looked very clean on the forum that I saw the other day, and it hurt big time. But thankfully, there was still the large patch on the back of the jumper down the bottom of it.
Oh, that's lucky.
Which, I could see that and was like, oh, thank God for that, because you could see that in the photos and the vision quite easily. So that obviously didn't come out, but I think it was on the back, so he didn't care about the back so much because he wanted to frame it. So
yeah. The other catch is as well, because I did see that COA and it was just from some framing company, or it was, I'm not even sure of the name of the company, but it wasn't, but anybody that, you knew because you sold it to him, but another person that could just be looking at buying a jumper, they see that COA, that could scare them off because they're like, that COA just it's not an AFLPA one or whatever, and because it's lost that photo matching ability from the photos that were listed online, it would have probably actually deterred people from wanting to buy it because it just lost some legitimacy. I'm really glad that there was still stains that could be photo matched, but when I seen it, I sort of didn't look into it a lot, but I just seen that first photo from the front, which looked rather crisp and clean.
Yeah, it did, which as soon as I saw it, I thought, whoa, is this the same jumper or not? And then luckily I saw the back and I was like, oh God, thank God it's still there. But it does hurt to see that because, it is quite rare nowadays, especially with COVID now. The chances of you getting a worn jumper with not washed is going to be very unlikely. So you've got to treasure those.
Absolutely. Even I've got some Richmond match worns and every single one of them's been washed. Every single one of them. Which is, you'd love the dirt stains. I think the two saviours are still the Grippo, because Grippo just doesn't wash off. Yep. And I don't know if it's blood or I don't know if it's Powerade, but I've got a Nathan Brewer one that has some stain down the satch, and it's not Grippo, and it's not mud. I don't know what it is. It's either going to be Powerade or, I never actually went back and watched the game because that's got an AFL Players Association match worn and Solana and Madeline Foundation. So I know that it was match worn. You can just tell by sort of the stretch and the GPS pocket and that sort of stuff. But I couldn't find any photos of whether a stain was down it. So I was thinking maybe after the game somebody been throwing Gatorade around. But at least there's still some stains that are after a wash, but it's just not quite the same. I don't own a proper dirty match worn, but they just, as weird as it sounds, they're beautiful.
No, I totally agree. No, actually, also I have one that I bought at the end of season sales, David Mundy's 2018 away jumper. I was going to buy it anyway, it doesn't matter if it was definitely worn or not, but I bought it because it had a nice big blue stain down the front of it. I thought, that's pretty cool. That's probably from Powerade, but I put it in the cupboard, and I think it was about a year later, I decided, I'll go back and watch that game. Well, I just went back and just watched some footage anyway. I didn't know exactly what game it was from, obviously. But I watched some footage, and I stumbled across the Carlton game, and I just saw this big blue paint mark down the front of it.
Even a logo or a 50-meter line or something. Yeah, that's cool.
But often the red and the blue paints will spill onto the jumpers, especially on it. So
those really wet games are absolutely just covered in it.
Yeah, so great if you can pick up some of those.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't even seen one. I've seen them on the TV, but I've never actually come across one of those dirty paint jumpers. That would be really cool. Especially you being Mundy, you would have been on cloud nine with that one.
Yeah, I definitely was. I took a photo of it in front of his locker the same day and sent it to him.
That's cool. And it's really cool that you've been able to develop that bond with him through it as well. So that's awesome.
It definitely is. I mean, it's all about creating bonds, and if you can get some jumpers out of it, great. But to me, it's not even about that. I've never got a jumper off him or anything like that. But I've always just had, hey, look what I just picked up. This is yours. How cool is this? Like that to me is just fantastic to be able to show somebody that you own a piece of their history.
Yeah. Even it's nowhere near to the level that you have, but I always tag the players who own the jumper on Facebook, and quite a lot they do like the photo as well. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. They know that I've got their jumper. Like they've actually, I'm assuming that they've actually paid enough attention to like it and to check it out and that sort of stuff. So I know it's just a little 2-second click of a button that they've done, or double tap of their screen, but it's still cool just to get that little like from a player, like, oh, they've seen it, they know that I've got their jumper, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it certainly does help, because I like I say, I do exactly the same as you. So I tag everybody when I get them in as well. So when I put them on Instagram, I tag all the players. And yeah, you're right. I've seen plenty of times where players will just like it or even make a comment, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then when other players start making comments as well, it's even better.
Yeah, I had Marbiol Chol like one of my photos. I think it was a Patrick Naish one. He liked it. It's not his jumper. I didn't tag him or anything, but he must have been. And it was also a post that I'd posted like 3 to 4 weeks earlier as well. So it's probably unlikely. Or he doesn't like my page, so he must have just been scrolling through and come across my page and was liking old photos. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool, yeah. And often it leads to something else. So while I was mentioning Luke Ryan there, he actually sent me a message through Instagram and said, hey, it's really cool you own my jumpers, because it was after about probably 6 of them that I tagged him in. I guess he started to either get annoyed. I was like, hey, this guy actually really likes my stuff. So
he's genuine.
Yeah, so he messaged me and said, oh, it's really cool you collect my stuff, and we ended up playing basketball together.
Oh, man, that's sick.
Yeah, it was really cool. So we went down to the courts, and him and Brendan Cox and Michael Johnson were there, and we all played ball for about an hour and a half, and we had a great time.
Oh, not many people could, probably no one could ever say that if they've done that. That's awesome, mate.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We had an absolutely legendary time, and you just create bonds with players. And about a year on later, at the Christmas party last year, he saw me and came up and signed my belt that I had the day. And
did you recognise you?
He did. He recognised me. Came straight to me
awesome.
and said g'day and asked me if I still play ball, and he was actually not bad either. So
I think a lot of those footy players, they do have other talents, so like a good cricket player or basketball player or some other random sport.
Yeah, Brendan Cox was unbelievable. He was lights out that day.
Really? I might get those Pendlebury-esque stories about him in the future.
Yeah, maybe.
I actually one time had Brent Hardigan, a former Richmond player, message my Facebook page, Instagram page. So he just completely out of the blue, I didn't tag him, I didn't like anything, he just must have come across it and just messaged me. And he said, I'll track down a jumper for you, I'll send it your way. I was taken aback. I was like, wow, like, oh my goodness. But even I offered to send through money for the jumper, and he said no, and then I said, oh, well, at least let me cover postage and handling, all that sort of stuff. And he's like, no. Long story short, it actually ended up that all of his jumpers were at his mum's house, and she doesn't live anywhere near him. But, who knows when he'll come across that jumper in the future. So, I didn't get a jumper from it, but I just thought, how cool is that somebody's actually just gone and messaged me from the page that they've seen, and they've just he actually said, I just wanted to help out your collecting. You're obviously dedicated. I'd prefer it go to there than just sit around in a wardrobe. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, it can't get any cooler than that, honestly. We really look up to these players, and for them to just take the very short period of time out of their life just to message us, it makes a huge impact. So it's awesome to get that sort of thing from them. And if you can get something out of them, it's even better. And it's something that you'll hang on to forever. I've got stuff from players that they won't go anywhere now. So I'll have jumpers that I buy from Gumtree or Marketplace, and I'll move them on, but that's not an issue. But if a player gives me a jumper, it is likely to stay in my collection forever, I would reckon. Unless they want it back.
Yeah, no, that would be an interesting one. It'd probably come down to if you paid. I don't think I could either. I don't know what I'd do if a player, really wanted a jumper and messaged me. It's something I've thought of. it's never happened. I don't think I've even heard anybody say it, but like if a player says, hey mate, I really, really, really want that jumper, like it meant a lot to me, or something happened that was significant in that game, I'd be like, oh wow. Like I don't know what I'd do, because I seen a Facebook video, I can't even remember when it was, but it was Byron Pickett with his grand final jumper. I'm 99% sure it was his North Melbourne grand final jumper.
Yeah.
I think it was 99. I can't remember, but that they'd managed to get that back. I've got no idea how they did it, but I was thinking that very well could have sat with the collector originally. And I guess if a player had it, I don't know, something I've never come across, but just something that I thought of after seeing that Byron Pickett video of him getting his grand final jumper back, because he was very emotional about it. He was crying and he was so thankful to have it.
That's right. A lot of times, like I've mentioned it heaps of times before, but a lot of times there's players when they're playing, they just don't really think about it, and they will just, give away the jumpers or not decide to keep them from the club. They'll just get rid of them. But then later on, you go back to your career or you've got kids at the time or you've got grandkids and you think, geez, I wish I had some of my stuff from back in my day. So I think it's about that time where they start thinking, oh, maybe I could, get onto some of these collectors. And luckily now they've got these opportunities where they're a lot easier to find.
Yeah,
harder back then.
How long have you been collecting for?
About 6.5 years.
Yeah. So you sort of always had social media, but pre-social media, it would have been very tricky.
Yes, 100%. I mean, and that Byron Pickett thing it's probably a prime example of how hard he probably looked for that and trying to get it. So, it's not something that you just scroll through the marketplace or you have a look in the Facebook group and just go, there's Byron Pickett's 1999 grand final jumper. Those things do not pop up. No, not at all. And you're right about if you had something that big and if a player asked for it, how hard it would be to give it back up. I don't know. Yeah.
It probably depends on the jumper. If it was, I don't know. Like I've got Patrick Naish's player issue, grand final jumper. I obviously didn't play in that game. I'm assuming that he has one as well, but I wouldn't be totally aware. But like if he messaged me saying like, hey mate, like I know I didn't play that game, but I really, really just want to have it, I probably couldn't rob him of the opportunity of having something like that, but I also wouldn't want to lose something like that.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got about 39 odd David Mundy jumpers, and I've always said to him, hey man, if you ever want any of your jumpers, you're quite welcome to come and have a look, but you can't have any of them.
Yeah.
But he understands that, he ain't getting any.
Yeah.
But I did actually have a player very recently actually message me when I put up a 2004 Peel Thunder Colts jumper. So Peel Thunder are fairly new to the comp at that point. They're about 7 years in, I believe, but I think Hayden Ballantyne and a few other AFL players were playing in that squad, and it was just a Colts jumper, but it's the first time that the club actually won anything. So I put that up on the page, and I had the guy who actually wore that jumper. He didn't wear it in the game, but he wore it throughout the rest of the year. He messaged me and he said, hey mate, I would love to actually get a hold of that jumper if possible. And I said, yeah man, no problem. I paid $100 if you want it for $100, it's yours. He never messaged me back again.
Oh, really? Well, good on you nonetheless. I guess he wasn't as serious about it, but that's still nice of you to be happy to part with it for him.
If it was probably someone, that I'd actually heard of, I probably would have just given it to him and said, hey, this is really cool, but I'd never heard of the bloke, and I don't think he played much after that. But I was like, yeah, not really willing to give it up for someone that it probably won't come back at all.
Maybe that might be my new ploy. I'll go around saying that my name's Dustin Martin and just start messaging people saying, hey, that's my jumper that I wore. Any chance you could send it to me?
Not a bad idea. Hey, so how many jumpers do you have in your collection at the moment?
In total, I'm up to 27. So I've got pretty much 2 goals that are going on at the moment. My main goal is to have a jumper of every Richmond number from 1 through to 50. So that's essentially my goal. But I also have a bit of a side goal that I want a player jumper from every club. Either player issue or match worn. More of a significant player. So the players that I've got in that one is Stephen Martin, Stephen Hill, which came from yourself, Jeremy Cameron and Ricky Henderson. So they're all sort of well-known players in the AFL world. So that's sort of one that I just chip away at. I see a jumper that pops up and I just think, oh, hey, I wouldn't mind that one. That's going at a nice price, but I don't sort of actively right away like saying, oh, I'm looking for a North Melbourne player issue jumper. I just sort of, with those ones, I wait and see. But with the Richmond numbers, 1 to 50 is what I'm trying to tick off, and I've currently got 22 of the 50 numbers. So to recap, 27 jumpers in total, 22 out of 50 numbers, but I've got 23 Richmond jumpers in total.
That's pretty impressive. Have that many February. Numbers. Small collection.
Yeah, so since February. I've got a bit of a thing as well that I'm sort of dedicating certain numbers to particular players, which I'm sure is going to get very, very, very tricky. But numbers like number 4, I ultimately want to somehow manage to get a Dustin Martin, or number 8 was for Jack Riewoldt, number 9 for Trent Cotchin, number 18 for Alex Rance, 12 for Richo. So I've got a couple of those players, but there is some numbers that I'm holding for that certain player. But with the other ones, I'm just trying to get a mix of different jumpers from as many different years, as many different styles. I'm okay with a couple of training jumpers to be in there, but I mainly want it to be actual game jumpers, whether they're home, away, Indigenous, a special one-off game or something like that. Or, yeah, same with pre-season as match worn. I'm okay with a couple, but I ultimately want the 50 to sort of be a diverse range of different styles.
Yeah, fair enough. It's good to have a little goal at the start with, because to be honest, I never had a goal for about 4 or 5 years. I was like, whatever, something pops up, I'll buy it.
Yeah, when I was starting and listening to some of the podcasts, like different people were talking about different collections and different goals that they had, and I just I'm a pretty driven and goal-based person in life, so I pretty much wanted to have something that was achievable, and I'm never going to have every single Richmond jumper in the history of the club. It's just impossible, because some of those collections out there are absolutely mental. Like, Vinci's very, very close to his. I think he's only 2 jumpers away now. And I've seen that you've been trying to get every jumper that Fremantle's, like a style of every jumper that Fremantle's wore as well.
Unfortunately, I've gone for literally every jumper that they have ever worn in every season. So I've pretty much got doubles of quite a few, but it's because they wore the same jumper for multiple years. But I have to have one for every single year.
Every single year.
It's 95 at this point, and I've got about 17 to go. So it's
ooh, that's yeah. As the sort of the margin gets smaller and smaller, there's harder to come across jumpers. I'm sure when I'm only a couple of numbers to go, that'll happen with me as well. But I just wanted to have a goal, and I just thought that 1 to 50 was a cool little goal to have, and I'm looking forward to the day I'll be able to put them all out, 1 through to 50, find a spot, and just lay every single jumper out. I reckon it would be a pretty cool photo.
Yeah, you'll think that now.
Yeah, I did hear.
You're gonna hate yourself for doing it.
Doug was talking about the constant squats, I think, on his podcast, of going down and getting back up for every single jumper. So.
I only put out 24 Mondays, and I couldn't walk for the next day after that.
Yes, you go down, then you go back up, and then you get them all in spot, and then you have to pick them all back up when you're all done and make sure you put them back.
They're never right. When you're putting them down, they're never right. You always want to lay them out a bit flatter, and you're constantly up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to get them right. But that might just be my OCD, but I don't know.
No, I haven't done a family photo yet. I've got sort of too big of a spread of numbers, but yeah, when I get to the 50, I'll make sure I take a group photo.
Well, I look forward to that, because, yeah, it's something I will never do again.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But no, so you mentioned your thoughts on collecting other teams, and you really just want to keep it to 1 per team. Is that right? Or
correct.
Stand on that, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I do have Fitzroy and the Brisbane Bears in my little spreadsheet that I've got as well. I'll probably leave them to last, so I can say that I've got all of the current clubs. In saying that, though, if a Fitzroy or Brisbane Bear ones ever comes across and it's in my budget at that point in time, because rightfully so, they're not the cheapest of jumpers going. But yeah, that's a bit of a side collection that I'd like to have as well, because even just I like pulling the jumpers out. My friends come around and have a look and like, oh, you don't have any blah blah jumpers. So when I do, I'll be able to say, actually, I've got a jumper for every single team.
Well, I like that as well. When people come around, if they come around to buy a jumper or whatever, but I know they're fans of different clubs, and I take them in to have a look at my collection, and I notice they go straight for my other team collections, and I've got them all in alphabetical order and number order and season order, etc. So I make it easy for them to go in and have a look and see if their team's there. But most of the time they're usually pretty surprised to see a jumper from their team in my collection.
Yeah, and I don't even really post. I think I've got a couple of photos on my Instagram, but I don't really post too much of those other teams. You just come across them every now and again, and they're just a nice jumper at a good price. So like, why not?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, so it's obviously a really rough year this year with COVID and all that. Absolutely. But how have you found collecting? Obviously, you started collecting this year and you've got 27 already. So, I mean, how have you found the COVID situation impacting or not impacting collecting jumpers?
I'll be honest, I thought that we were going to see a lot of jumpers go for really cheap. And I feel a little bit guilty even thinking that people might not financially be in a good spot. But it's just been such a painful time. And I thought that those that were in positions to be selling, one of the first things to go is probably those collector items. I know you spoke about your trip to America and to raise a fund. Sadly, a couple of those jumpers just had to go out the door. So very early days, I honestly thought that we were going to see a lot of jumpers be listed. But it almost worked out that I felt jumpers were getting more and more expensive and they were going quicker and quicker and quicker. Like, honestly, I was really surprised, and I'm by no means as seasoned as yourself or so many other people that are out there, but I still talk to a lot of people, and a lot of those collectors had been saying to me, like, they've never seen the jumpers go so hot, or some people that had been listing jumpers and sell jumpers quite a bit, they've never had them go so quick. Usually it's a few listings, a few posts, a lot of messages, people stuffing them around, but it was just like bang, bang, bang. So it almost, I feel that as I said, I'm still so new to it, but I feel over the last couple of months, the prices have gone up a little bit and they've been much quicker at going. I don't know if it's because we haven't really seen any club auctions or club sell jumpers for quite some period of time. Like, it's the end of last year, so we're now halfway through this year. It's probably been about 8-9 months since any of those garage sale style club sales or end of year auctions. And of course, not even every club does those end of year auctions. Richmond don't. Well, they don't all the time, and they didn't last year. So a lot of the jumpers are becoming recycled, and some people that do buy them ultimately do look to sell them. And then when they're selling the jumpers, they're wanting to post a little bit of a profit on top of what they paid for it, or even just to cover the postage or the PayPal fees and that sort of stuff. So even when you do see a jumper that goes up for a second time, they seem to be a little bit more expensive than what they originally are. And you got to be really, really quick. Like, even some jumpers that I see, I'm like 15 minutes to comment and bam, already gone.
Yeah.
Like, already gone. Or there's a good point raised. I think it was Tom Williamson posted it in the group about like stealing people's sales and that sort of stuff. When people list them, obviously things get a little bit more tricky, because especially when they don't post a price, people might say PM sent, but you don't ultimately know whether they're just asking for the price, if they're wanting to buy it, if it's out of their price range, if they just had a question. You don't know. So I'm honestly okay if I've only just read PM sent in the messages. I just leave it at, like, I'm okay just to leave their comment, and I'll just message them, hey, is this still available? What price are you asking for? I'm okay with that. But when there's somebody that's stated sold or I'll buy it or something like that, I don't even comment, especially those Richmond collectors when they post that they're looking to, like, sold or buy, or I'll buy it, I've just PM'd you or something like that. I don't even step on any toes. Like, I don't want to. They've got in first. It's their jumper. And I could be 10 minutes late to a post sometimes, and there's already a comment in there saying I'll buy this off you, or sold, or something like that. So I don't even message them, but I'm like, oh damn, 10 minutes, I was so close. And yeah, they just go super quick. So I don't know if a lot of people not being able to do things that they normally be doing. A lot of footy seasons have been cancelled, like especially in Victoria. Almost all of them have been canned now. I know myself, I've been in a really lucky position that my job has been unaffected. I've been working from home, but I haven't had any changes to my finances. Mm-hmm. However, my weekend trip to the footy, my weekends at the pub, the other social gatherings, the birthday parties, I'm not doing any of that. So the money that I would probably be spending at the pub on the weekend, there's an extra $200. Oh, there's a nice footy jumper. Might buy that jumper. Whereas those really early days, sort of late February, early March when I was collecting, I had a lot going on in my life in terms of birthday parties and weddings and that sort of stuff. And I was trying to all right, well, I'm going to a wedding. I'm going to have to spend this much money, buy a gift, that, and I've got $200 left over. So if I was to buy a jumper, I'd have that. Whereas now, I'm still budgeting for bills and other things, and my rates were just due. There's other things that come up, but those extra expenses that the money's usually going to, it's not, it's not at the moment. There's no social life. No social life I can spend money on.
Yeah, that's right. That's a heck of a lot of great points, I'll be honest. From a simple question, you raised about 7 very, very valid points.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I think it's made it much busier.
So from what I was thinking after I wrote that question last night, I was thinking, how would I answer this question? And you're right. But I think the whole COVID thing is, I don't know if it's brought on a lot more collectors because they've got nothing to do, as you mentioned, but it seems like there is a heck of a lot more collectors out there. And if you'd said to me, 2 years ago that jumpers seem to be a higher price now, I'd probably slap you. But because you've just come into the game, what you've seen is now those prices are getting raised because there is a lot more collectors out there, and like you said, they're moving a heck of a lot quicker. But the prices have actually come down a lot in that 2-year period, which is crazy because I talk to other collectors about it all the time, how much they come down. Certain clubs will always stay at their high point, or they'll even go much higher than they are now, like Port Adelaide, constantly going for unbelievably high prices. The Tigers going for much higher than they have done previously. There are a lot of clubs that are struggling along that are going for a lot less. And it's funny how often I'll get a message. Actually, I'll share one I got a couple of weeks ago. I put up it is Freo, but I put up a Freo warm-up top and asked, I think $60, which is, cheap. It was a match warm-up top. And the guy messaged me and said, hey, would you take $30 including postage? And I was just like, wow. I was like, man, honestly, that's insulting. I'm just going to keep the jumpers, to be honest with you. So it's crazy that, you can look at it and say jumpers are going up massively, and then you look at other clubs and they're struggling along, and it's great for us collectors who can pick them up cheap. But if we try to resell, it's not as easy sometimes. But that ebbs and flows. It happens just constantly. Every year is different, but then there's a heck of a lot of new collectors, as I mentioned, and a lot of them seem to be a lot younger than, us guys who out there have been collecting for a while and maybe have spent a lot more money on collecting some of these jumpers than some of the younger guys are aware of. And it rains on you sometimes that, you spent so much money and these guys come in and they start, haggling so much of prices. Lowball the hell out of you. And another thing you mentioned with the PM sent comments. It does my head in. I mean, great, you're allowed to send a PM, not a problem at all, and ask questions. But then if I say sold on a comment or a jumper, and then I get, oh man, it's already sold in PMs. Like, that shits me off so bad. Like, if you want the jumper, don't just send a PM. Just say, hey man, I want the jumper. It's sold, it's mine, and I'll send you a PM. Yeah. But then it also happens where people will comment sold, and then they'll message the person, and then 10 minutes later, it's still there, what's going on? And then I'll message them and say, hey, did it sell? Oh, no, the guy didn't want it, or didn't want to pay.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. Yeah, it's a catch-22. And I probably a bit more, the jumpers that mainly get the comments sold from my end are Richmond ones, and I'm sort of pretty familiar with the Richmond collectors and that are out there that are usually buying them, and those who comment, I generally know that, they're genuine. But I haven't actually come across somebody that I've never seen just say sold on a jumper that I want. I haven't thought haven't thought of what I'd do, but yeah, you're right. It's such a tricky one because just because they say sold, they might offer them half the price that you're asking for, including postage, and they might think it's sold at that price, but that doesn't mean the seller does.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's things that frustrate the hell out of you as a collector, but yeah, I don't think anything's really going to change. I think it's never going to unify completely, unfortunately. Admins will do as much as they can to do what they can to keep it all fair. They do a great job. They do a great job, absolutely. But it is very hard to keep everyone uniform and on the same page. But it is things that frustrate you, but it's a collecting game. That's what it is, I suppose, isn't it? If it was easy, it wouldn't be as fun, I suppose.
And that's right, and I think that's the exciting part is like when you come across something that you really want, it's not like you can just stroll into Rebel Sports and there's a match-worn Ben Cousins or there's Tom Mitchell's Brownlow year player issue jumper. Like it doesn't happen like that. Like these things, as you've said on the podcast a million times, they don't have a regular retail price. They're not sold at a retail basis. Like a lot of these, there's literally a very, very select number of them that are ever made. There's, it's not that we can just go to the shop and buy them, sadly. Yeah. But if we could do that, it probably wouldn't be as fun.
Yeah, that's it. And value is at it really is at the foot of the seller. So I mean, if a collector is going to lowball you, it's up to you. If you think it's not worth that to not sell at that price, but if you decide, hey man, it's worth way more to me, then that value of that jumper is valued more because you think it is, and you're not going to sell it for any less than that. So if you sell it at a higher price, really technically it's valued at that price. If you sell it less, then you've just valued it at a less price. So,
and it makes there's no valuing them so hard. Yeah, you're right. It makes valuing them so hard as well because at the end of the day, it's worth what the person wants, and then it's worth what the person pays for them. I could feel that a jumper's worth $200, but if old mate wants $300 for it, and then somebody's happy to pay for it, just because I say it's worth $200, that doesn't mean it's worth it. Yeah,
that's right. It's amazing how often I can't sell for sell a jumper for $150 of a quality known player. And then I look at some of the other pages and they've got up $350 for a player I've never heard of in my life. Played one game and people were jumping all over it. I'm like, how, I don't get it. I don't understand, but it is what it is. I mean, every club's different and every collector goes a bit harder than some others, so.
Yeah, and you're right. Even the other day, I picked up a Jeremy Cameron player issue jumper for $200, and been listed for a few days. Yep. And I was thinking, like, I thought it was a good price. I was more than happy to pay for it. But that was I know they didn't win the grand final, but it was still a grand final year for them. He won the Coleman medal, really good, renowned player. Yep. A lot of player issues for Richmond jumpers can't even go for $200. They're a hell of a lot more than that, and these are for guys that never even stepped foot on the field. Like, clubs can be so different as well. There's a big price difference with different clubs, which I've really noticed, and it frustrates me supporting the Richmond Tigers, being one of those more expensive clubs. But is it just the price that you pay for success? So it's probably worth it.
It's 100% correct. I mean, like I said, Jeremy Cameron's not just a great football player, he's a superstar of the game, Coleman medalist, and premiership or grand final season. You look at that, and if you say that in a Richmond jumper, it's going to go for double that. At least.
Yeah. Well, almost you could look at like Jack Riewoldt as being the equivalent for Richmond as what Jeremy Cameron is, and I paid a lot more than $200 for my Jack Riewoldt jumper.
That's right. I actually picked up a Jeremy Cameron as well for $150 last year, and that was one of the ACT jumpers, but it was a special one because it had the yellow. The yellow ACT logo. So to me, that was even better. And I picked up $150, and that was on auction bidding. So
wow.
It's crazy that things like that can go so cheap because, one-off jumper for the Tigers, even for a lower player, you're going to pay a lot more money. So sometimes it sucks who you collect sometimes. You're going to pay a lot more money.
Yeah. Maybe I need to start supporting the Gold Coast Suns or something like that. They're doing really well at the moment.
Success. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. I would take success over a fantastic jumper any day. So if one day the Freo actually do ever win anything, then if I don't get a jumper from that day, I'll always have that success in my mind. So I'd be happy with that, to be honest.
Agreed.
So, all right, we're rambling on a lot here, and you've got a game to watch soon, so we'll move along a little bit quicker. So, being a new collector of the hobby, what is one thing that you found that has maybe surprised you or didn't expect?
I think the thing that expected me the most was the Richmond Collectors, and I know like that we don't have a volume of port numbers, but at first I seen it was some Richmond Collectors, and I thought, oh, are they like competitors? Like we're trying to do the same thing, we're trying to collect the same jumpers, like that could be pretty awkward because we're trying to get the same things. But the thing that surprised me the most is, despite supporting the same club, you can actually work together. Like, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but Richard May, obviously a fantastic collector and a very, very knowledgeable guy who has an awesome collection. I've talked to him quite a bit, and he's an awesome guy, and we've worked together. He's tagged me in Richmond jumpers. I'll send him photos of Richmond jumpers that I've come across. Like, just because we support the same club and we strive to collect the same jumpers doesn't actually mean that you still can't work together.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's all credit to Richard. I couldn't sing his praises high enough as a new collector. He's been really, really helpful, and he's been absolutely fantastic. And it honestly surprised me, like, that he was still happy to help me out despite me trying to get the same things that he was trying to get, as well as just how helpful other people are. I listened to the podcast a lot more before I actually started collecting the jumpers. Like, when I remember I think it was late January, so I was on leave from work at the time, had quite a few days off, and I probably smashed out about 5 or 6 of your podcasts in a whole week. And I was really listening to the discussions of the culture and the talking to people and all that sort of different stuff and helping people out, working together. But at that stage, I'd never even commented on the page. The jumpers that I had purchased were like on eBay and a marketplace, and they weren't actually from your more renowned collectors. Mm-hmm. But like, I'll talk to collectors all the time now. Like, even Raymond Lay, I also hope he doesn't mind me name dropping him, who's the Carlton and Chris Judd collector. He and I will talk. Yeah, he and I pretty much talk every day, and it's not even always about jumper collecting. So just the community has been what's really surprised me, and how awesome some of the people are. I don't want to sound too corny, but yeah, honestly, that's the thing that surprised me, is sort of the unity between everybody, and that everybody just wants to work together for a similar goal.
Yeah, that's right. The community out there is hugely advantageous if you use it the right way. And if you're not burning everybody, then you can really make some great friends, and you can get some fantastic stuff out of it. And it's incredible how many people out there who are willing to help that maybe collect the same thing as you, which is what you mentioned with Richard. Richard's a great bloke. I've done plenty of things with Richard as well, and he's helped me and I've helped him. So it's crazy. I mean, I don't collect Richmond, I collect Freo, he collects Richmond, but we have helped each other out quite a fair bit, and whether it be knowledge or me picking up something for him, or it's great the relationships that you can form with people that you normally wouldn't ever talk to.
And I'll actually
get from it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I hope you don't mind. I'll do one more name drop as well.
Go for it.
Harrison Young is another young collector. He and I were just talking one day about jumpers that we had on the go and we're looking at buying and that sort of stuff. And we actually ended up discovering that the exact same guy was trying to sell both of us the same jumper. Which obviously is a little bit awkward. But we were both sort of like, oh, if you want it, like, you can pursue it, like, it's alright. But then we also both had a bit of like, this guy, is he trying to lead both of us on? Like, is this legitimate? Like, is he trying to sell the two of us the same jumper? Harrison was a lot more advanced in the discussions with him, because the seller had told me that he was sort of more hoping to sell it, sort of really, really soon, but he didn't live too far away from me. So I was like, because it was a little bit sketchy and the guy didn't have a reputation, I'd prefer just to pick it up in person. But it was right in the middle of COVID. So I said to him, like, hey mate, dead keen on the jumper, like really, really, really interested. With the COVID restrictions, it would be a $1,500 fine or whatever the fine was, plus the cost of the jumper. Like, I'm not breaking the rules. Like, I'm really interested and I'm okay to come and meet you for it. But I just wanted to hold off. And then he sort of, yeah, no worries. And then just went really quiet, and just with COVID, we're just waiting for it to come. But then he'd sort of been actively trying to sell it to Harrison. And Harrison said, like, listen, mate, Like, it's a jumper that'll go in your collection. I'm more than happy for it to go to you. So Harrison actually ended up buying the jumper off of him. I transferred Harrison the jumper. Harrison then paid the guy. The guy posted it out to Harrison, and then Harrison just on-forwarded it to me. He didn't have to do that. He got absolutely nothing for it. Like, I added a bit of extra money for his trouble, but he didn't ask for it. But I was just like, isn't that really good of him? Like, we're both wanting the same jumper, and he went to that effort for no reward at all. Like, he got nothing out of that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a feeling of, hey, I've helped another collector out, that it really overrides everything. And if you're in it for the right things, then it's great. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, great job, Harrison. Well done, mate. Yeah. Those sort of things get you a long way. So, yeah, it's good to hear that there are people out there that do help. And it's crazy because you won't hear that quite often. So people will do things behind closed doors and help each other out. And sometimes they'll do things that well above and beyond, but you never know about it as collectors. It's just you helping each other out behind closed doors, but no one will ever hear how much us guys really do for other people. But it's good to know that there are people out there who are still willing to help out, and sometimes it can be a funny game, but sometimes it can be really rewarding for everybody.
Absolutely, mate. Well said.
So you mentioned earlier that you don't really collect anything else. Is that the case? So it's really just footy jumpers for you?
Yeah. To be totally honest, I have a couple of Premier's posters, the Matt Black Herald Sun ones from 2017 and 2019. But yeah, mate, that's literally it. I've got a couple of other items that family members have passed on to me because of a lot of other Richmond supporters. But unlike a lot of the other guests that have collected other things like records and other miscellaneous items, I can see all your wrestling belts in the background of your video and the masks up there. It's just something that I never really collected, and it was just sort of weird how I got one, and then I got another couple, and it fell into place from there. I've always had Richmond stuff, but it wasn't like actively collecting particular items. It was just I seen something Richmond that I liked, or I wanted to put up on the wall, or it was something significant, so I would buy it. But it wasn't actually in line with a particular collection or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of good in a way, because you end up finding that you spend way too much money on other things. And I'll be honest, when we bought this house very recently...
Congratulations too, by the way.
Thank you very much. The shed that we have was a major factor in us buying it, purely because of how big it is and how much I can fit my collection-wise into it. So it's crazy. A 7-meter shed was a big factor in me purchasing it. I've got that much stuff to shove in it.
Who would think we'd see the day where jumper collecting was affecting the mindset of a potential purchasee for real estate?
It's mental. Absolutely mental. But hey, we do it for the love and the passion, and love and passion's all I have nowadays. So.
Yeah, still a very odd time.
Yeah, it is. So, is there one jumper, or even more, that you've had a chance to have a crack at that you've maybe hesitated and lost?
To be honest, not yet. I'm sort of a see a jumper, buy a jumper kind of guy still at the moment. Not at this stage. I've come across a couple of jumpers that are just priced well and truly outside of anything that I'd be willing to pay, that I've missed out on because of the price that they're listed for. I got offered a match-worn Dustin Martin for $15,000. Which actually I think is outrageous. It went at auction for I think 8 or 9, which is a hell of a lot of money. But that's, I wouldn't have paid that at an auction anyway. So I would never buy that. It's been on eBay for quite some time, a Brandon Ellis player issue 2017 grand final. I'd absolutely love that, but it's about $5,000, and that's just too much money for me. So all of the jumpers that I've really, really wanted, I've been able to acquire. But there's those couple of jumpers as well as another couple that people are wanting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for. There was a David Asprey jumper that was match worn that the guy wanted $4,000 for. I love Dave Asprey, great player, and the gentleman's able to ask for whatever he wants. It's his jumper, he owns it. But that was, just way too much money for me to be forking out on it.
Sometimes you find that you'll put a jumper up. Well, I've done it myself, but it actually was a Dusty. I put up a Dusty for $1,500 on eBay. It was also match worn. Back before it went completely crazy. And I just thought, I don't really want to sell it, but I'll chuck it up for $1,500. If someone really wants it, they'll buy it. Great. But I'm in no hurry to sell it. And I sold it within a day. And I was like, okay, so maybe I underdid myself here, but it is what it is. There is somebody out there who definitely want it. It's funny, and then they'll pay for it. So, like you said, someone can chuck it up for what they want, and chances are there is maybe one or two people out there who will pay that price for it, and if the seller can get that for it, then fantastic. Well done to them. Congratulations. Unfortunately, it does price out some of us lower collector anyway.
And even like I don't buy any of my jumpers with the idea of selling them, but there's somewhat a peace of mind that you just know if you really had to sell it, you wouldn't be losing money on it. Whereas trying to sell a David Asprey jumper for $4,000, it's probably not money you would be able to get back if need be.
Sometimes you gotta look at it and think, hey, is this a valuable investment for myself, or is it just something that's going to sit in my collection forever? And you really got to weigh that up. But hey, if you're rich enough to spend that much money on it, then go for it.
Yeah, lucky you.
All right, really winding down here, man. Last couple of questions for you.
Yeah, fire away.
Minutes before you got to go and watch the Tigers. What is your favourite era of Tigers jumpers?
It's Puma. I absolutely love the Puma jumpers. They're just the feel, the GPS, the stretch, everything about them. There's also that air of like the era that came with it. They started being our supplier of jumpers in 2017, and obviously since 2017 it's been some really successful years. So it probably plays a part in it as well, but I also like the colours, whereas the BLK and Cougar yellows were much more of that mustard. Yeah, mustard. They're a mustard colour. They're just not as desirable. The Nike jumpers are really, really cool as well. The 2001, 2003 Richmond Nike jumpers. They're awesome. They don't come up a hell of a lot, and they do have stitched on numbers, which is a little bit of a trap, especially for me in my early days. I purchased one with the hope that the number was legitimate, and then when I unframed it and turned it around, sadly it wasn't. But yeah, probably the Puma followed by Nike.
Yeah, the Puma makes perfect sense because, as you mentioned, they went from the mustard colour to this really vibrant yellow, and it feels like a jumper of power. And that's certainly what they are now, is a very powerful team. So you're absolutely right there.
And another thing, even the black with the BLK and Cougar was more of a charcoal. It wasn't a genuine black. It's interesting though, because some of the player issues that I do have that are Cougar, you can tell they've never been worn and they're really, really fresh, and it's more of a black. Yep. But the player issue ones, I've got a player issue Cougar that was worn by Brandon Ellis I think it's an elimination final. So he'd probably worn that jumper all throughout the season, wore it in the elimination final, got washed a heap of times, and the colour of I could call it black, has become charcoal, whereas another Cougar player issue that I have that's obviously pretty much brand new, they're a completely different colour. So the colour had obviously faded as it had been worn with the BLK and Cougar, which I'm sure happens with other ones as well, but it was very, very distinctive, whereas the Puma ones that I have that are match worn, there's no difference with the player issue and the match worn.
No. And you're right, the colours definitely washed out. You'd watch the game, and if it was a real bright day, you could just tell the washed out colours on the jumpers were just not quite right.
And whereas the shorts, I've got shorts from Cougar, and they're still the really, really dark black. So when we would be playing and we'd have a nice coloured short, the shorts were a completely different black to what the jumper was. I know that's
it stood out like a dog's ball.
Yeah, it looked dreadful.
All right, brother, last question for you, man.
Fire away.
Is there any particular jumpers that you would consider a whale jumper that you'd hope to one day add to your collection?
There's two. A Dustin Martin and a Matthew Richardson.
Anything in particular?
Like the Holy Grail would be a Dustin Martin premiership. Actually, the Holy Grail would be a Jack Riewoldt premiership that he wore on stage with the Killers.
Oh, yeah.
That would probably be the pinnacle of jumper collecting. But any Matthew Richardson or any Dustin Martin jumper would be the spectacular ones that I would really, really, really love to have. I don't even really have a plan of getting them at this stage, but yeah, I feel that they're two from that 1 to 50 that I really, really want to have.
Can't argue with the quality of players area. So, two great ones to pick. So, I mean, I've had a really good time having a chat here today. I think it's taken a little bit to get on here because I have been sick the last couple of weeks, but you've been tremendous to talk to. Really enjoyed your insight, and especially from a new collector as yourself. I've only been in the game for 6 months and still already know so much and doing things the right way. It's been really refreshing to hear.
You're a good man, Aaron. I appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've, like they say on the radio, long time listener, first time caller. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be on. So thank you for inviting me.
No worries at all, man. And one last time, just share everyone where they can find you on your social media.
So if you have a look on Facebook for Richmond FC Guernsey Collection or on Instagram as Jozzie's Richmond Jumpers.
Beautiful. And if you have any of those jumpers that he's after, make sure you hit him up as well.
Please do.
All right, Josh, you got 20 minutes, man, so off you go now. Go watch the Tigers have another win probably, hey?
Up the Tigs. We need it at the moment. Thanks, mate.
All right, brother. Take it easy, bro.
You too. Bye.
There we go. Thank you very much again to Josh for that fantastic chat. I really enjoyed it. I know all you guys will as well. It was really interesting to hear from a rather new collector. Like he said, he's only been collecting for just over 6 months now, as this episode goes to air. So really interesting to hear that he's managed to get 27 jumpers in his collection already, and be really exciting to see how far he goes in another 6 months' time. With this crazy world that we live in at the moment, seems to be lots of jumpers out there flying around. So you never know what could happen in the space of 6 months' time. Could have 100 jumpers in that time, but yeah, we'll just have to sit back and wait and see. Thanks again to Josh. Really appreciate you coming on, giving us your time, and I hope you enjoy listening back to yourself like a few of the other guys don't like doing. But I'm sure you'll absolutely love it. Thanks a lot, mate. All right, now, so before we get into all the usuals, what did I get in and what did I see on eBay and things like that, we're going to just cover off a little bit of information or snippets that I found out during the week as far as the apparel sponsors for the forthcoming seasons. Now, obviously, you guys would probably be across ISC's struggles as far as keeping contracts. They had to pull out of the Essendon contract last year, and they went with Under Armour. Now, reason for that being they simply just went too hard, too fast. And of course, now with coronavirus coming along, it's made it even harder for them. So it looks like, from what I've been told, from a very credible source, that the ISC will be moving out of Australia next season. So the AFL contracts that they have, I believe one team at this point will still be with them next year, and that team being St Kilda. I know a few of the other teams are definitely on the lookout for a new apparel sponsor. One has already signed up for a new apparel sponsor. Now, when that comes to light, I'm not exactly sure. I can't, unfortunately, give you the name of the club or the apparel sponsor they have gone with. But I know a few teams are definitely on the lookout for a new apparel sponsor. So sad times ahead for those who are big fans of ISC like myself. Yes, so big things ahead for the world of football next year as far as who's going to be wearing what. It looks as though St Kilda will still be wearing ISC jumpers, but unfortunately, we may see every other club wearing somebody else next year. We may find that they could pick up a contract or two or keep a contract or two before that time period, but I think it's pretty unlikely that more than a couple of clubs will still be with ISC next season. So, yeah, big news ahead, and we'll have to just keep an eye out on that one. Like I said, there is one club who has already signed with another apparel sponsor for next season. So, long-time club with ISC. So, it will be very interesting to see what sort of quality comes out of that. Really hope it's as good as has been previously. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, unfortunately. There's a little bit for you. I hope to give you a little bit more information when I am able to. Now, another thing that people were worried about with the coronavirus going around was the effect that it was going to have on auctions and how you were going to be able to pick up your club's jumpers, whether they were match worn, and whether or not the clubs would wash them or not. Now, if you listen to our interview with our last guest, Jaden Shea, Western Bulldogs property steward, sounds as though the Bulldogs will definitely be washing their jumpers and be very unlikely that they don't do so in future. So it was kind of expected that pretty much everybody would do that. However, coming out of the Port Adelaide prison bars auction that was done recently, it wasn't done through Port Adelaide themselves. It wasn't done on the AFL auction site, but it was done through official AFL or official memorabilia site, which was a bit different, interesting that they have gone that path. As a matter of fact, it looked like it was a good thing for Port Adelaide fans as they didn't have to wait too long. I know some clubs out there have been waiting quite some time. North Melbourne, they did an auction at the end of last year, and some people still haven't got their jumpers yet. So what the problem is there, I'm not 100% sure, whether it be the coronavirus issues, not too 100% sure on that. But yeah, so Port Adelaide went with a different route, and it seems to have worked because people started to receive or have all received their jumpers now. They seem to be unwashed, which is a tremendous result for Port Adelaide fans and all fans really, because it's a great result that it's still a possibility that we'll be getting unwashed jumpers, and of course you can wash them yourself if you decide to. But people like myself who would absolutely love to have these things unwashed, it is a great result. Obviously, these players are all tested for corona and things like that, but it is what it is, and I can't see it as being a major issue in future. I guess it could change, but it is great news that it is still a possibility to get your hands on these things, and politics and PC and all that hasn't taken over. So it is great news for footy fans out there. Now, if you're following that auction, you'll see that those jumpers went for a lot of money. I think the lowest jumper went for maybe $650 or $750 at lowest, and they went for up to $9-10 grand for the highest jumpers. So tremendous result for those who won the jumpers. Congratulations. If you'd like to share your winnings on the page, that would be great. And if there is a gentleman named Phil out there, you know who you are, and I believe a lot of the Port Adelaide fans and those who are trying to get the jumpers on that auction will certainly know who you are. He won a bunch of jumpers, so he spent a lot of money. I think some guys were saying he spent around about 30 grand, so would love to know if that was all paid for, and would love to know exactly who this Phil bloke is, because we never even would like to have a chat with him maybe in future. No one knew who he was on the page or on any of the pages when they were talking about him, so it would be interesting to know who this Phil bloke is. I think there were some people saying he's a travel guru or travel mogul or something like that. But yeah, so Phil, congratulations, mate. You got yourself a lot of good jumpers and a lot of envious Port Adelaide fans without any doubt. Collingwood also had a auction recently, also very successful. Jumpers went quite high. I'm not 100% sure if they are match worn as far as washed or not. I believe they were the Anzac jumpers. Forgive me for not doing my research on that one, but I believe they were the Anzac jumpers that they wore. Let me know if you did buy one, and when you get them, let us know if they are washed or not, because that would be fantastic to know. Hawthorn also did an auction as well, but yeah, let us know. That's a Legends jumper, I think. Terrible research on this one, but yeah, let us know. And Geelong, of course, are doing a auction for the Gary Ablett 350 and the Selwood 300 jumpers. They also had Paddy Dangerfield's 250 jumper as well, so good value in those ones as well. I think the Ablett was up to $2.5 grand, both halves, or third, fourth quarters, two jumpers anyway. So he probably wore 4, I would imagine. So club got 2 to auction off, and he kept 2 for himself, more than likely. Jump on those if they're still running. I believe they are. And again, I'm not 100% sure if they're washed or not, but I would imagine, being that they are pretty special jumpers, they're probably not washed. Now, there was another interesting fact about those ones as well, was they said that they don't come with a COA. Now, I think that probably is the fact that, with all this corona stuff going on, it's not been easy to be able to get COAs from the AFLPA or from SC products. the best of times. So in this uncertain times with the corona stuff going on, it probably would be even worse, and people will be waiting far too long for their jumpers to come. So Geelong decided the best thing to do would be not to provide a COA with those jumpers. Interesting that they couldn't just write their own COAs. I'm not sure why that is. Whether it had something to do with the whole debacle from a few years back with some dodgy COAs out of Hawthorn. But yeah, it was a whole lot going on there. So I'm not sure exactly why they can't write their own COAs. Would really like to know. I might see if I can get a hold of someone from the club and ask them what the reasoning for that is. Being the special jumpers that they are, I'm sure the people who win them would really like to have those COAs, even if it's just for their own peace of mind or to put in frame or something like that. But it's something that in future I could see being a real problem if people start trying to resell them. Pretty unlikely thing to happen, but if people try to resell them and there's no COA, you get those frustrating people that will have to question everything, and it just brings a real damper on the collecting hobby. So yeah, it would be interesting to know why they haven't provided COAs for those ones, but if they are unwashed, they're going to be pretty easy to spot, I would imagine, with some stains on there or some easy photo matching to do. But just like everybody else, the piece of paper just gives a little bit of peace of mind for those who, spend big money on these things. So yeah, I'll see if I can find out for you guys and let you know. Now, I'm super quickly just going to cover off what I've got in the last 8 weeks, I believe, since the last podcast. Again, sorry about that. Corona certainly hasn't stopped collecting as far as great stuff for myself. And from what Josh has said, he doesn't seem to have had an issue either. And from what I've seen from all you guys' pickups lately, it doesn't seem to have an effect on any of you guys picking up some absolute corkers either. So, be real interesting. The Perth Wildcats had a online, not auction, but an online sale where they sold off all their players' gear for the last year, which was fantastic. I was really lucky to find out on the day that was happening, so I did miss out on some pretty good stuff, I'd imagine, but I still picked up some amazing jerseys that were game-worn or player-issued. So absolute top stuff. So I was stoked to pick up about 26 odd jerseys from that, and I think I probably spent about $400. So 26 jerseys for $400, can't complain with that at all. It was really well done by the Wildcats because they are aware that over the last few years of doing the sale that's similar to the Freo and the Port Adelaide end of season sales, where it got really good feedback. So they're aware that the people would really love to own the gear that the players wore the year before. So they did it really well. Probably the advertising wasn't amazing, but it was enough for all the members to get on there and pick up some tremendous stuff. And I wasn't a member of the Wildcats, but thankfully someone who was gave me a heads up, and I was able to get on there and pick up some great stuff, as I mentioned. So it's great to see even other sports are starting to take the same route as far as giving their fans and supporters opportunities to pick up some really, really great stuff. I think it's starting to filter through all sports that us collectors are out there, and we are crazy at times, but we love our sport and we love our player issue and match worn gear. I was able to pick up a 2004 Mel Markle Grand Final player issue jumper. Beautiful jumper, and yeah, love that one. It will sit in the collection for a while now. I also was able to help out a Fremantle Dockers, I guess it was collector, but he was more of a cricket collector. And his collection had some great jumpers, and I'll give him that for sure. Wanted to get some cash for his jumpers. I was unable to provide him as much cash as he wanted. However, I didn't want everything he had for my collection, so I was able to make a deal to get him the cash he wanted and give him exactly what he needed, plus a little bit more. So I was able to do that, and I was stoked to be able to help him. Of course, I put some of my money in as well. Plenty, as a matter of fact, but we were both very, very happy with the outcome, and I picked up some great jumpers from it, including a long sleeve 1995 Gary Durkay original player issue jumper. These are all Freo jumpers too, by the way. And an original long sleeve green away Phil Gilbert player issue jumper as well. 2014 long sleeve away Matthew Pavlich. A 2010 Chris Mayne long sleeve home player issue. I picked up Lockie Neal's match worn 2013 grand final jumper. That's right, grand final jumper. Stoked to be able to have it. Lockie was the sub for the day, but obviously he's turned into an absolute gem of a player in the years following on that. So, always great to have a grand final jumper, champion player as well. Just a pity he doesn't play for us anymore, but amazing to add to the collection. Also a 2003 Luke McFarlane long sleeve home player issue. So real stoked to be able to help him out with that, and also pick up some great jumpers for myself to add to the collection. I also picked up a 2017 Michael Walters Indigenous home jumper. Love that jumper. It's a great design, but also Michael had a tremendous game that day, where he had 32 disposals and kicked 6 goals against the Saints in a great win. So, yeah, stoked to be able to pick that up. One a little bit off the cuff, but I'm going to mention it anyway because you all would know my love of wrestling by now. But I picked up a ring-worn Hulk Hogan blood-stained and torn rip-off tear-away t-shirt, which you would all know if you know who Hulk Hogan is. He's always tearing away these shirts before a match. And this is fantastic. And I even put on Twitter and asked him if he had wore it. And he said if he wore it, it'll be torn off, because in the photos it didn't look torn. But he said if it was torn, then he'd wore it. And when I got it, it was torn. So it was great to be able to see that. So, and to have the interaction with Hulk Hogan, who no doubt is the most famous wrestler of all time, was really, really cool. And he actually is the reason I started watching wrestling back in probably 89-ish. So that was awesome. And to own something of his is really, really cool. Dale out there, Dale Gavrilovich, apologise for outbidding you on that as well. But yeah, absolutely love it. Also added a 1998 Anthony Jones home match worn jumper and a 1999 Michael Clark home player issue. Beautiful, beautiful jumpers, and they were 2 to tick off of my list. So I have now 78 of the 95, so I need 17 more jumpers. So yeah, I'm getting there, but still 17 to go, and it's getting rather difficult to find those ones now. But yeah, beautiful jumpers to add to the collection. I included a 2001 to 2003. I say that because they wore the exact same jumper. I believe it probably was the same jumpers worn 2001, 2002, and 2003. They were a little bit cheap in those days. Ben Cunningham away jumper. It's a really nice tri-panel design. No doubt match worn, absolutely hammered to all hell that jumper, and more than likely worn across all 3 years. It would be interesting to find out how many they actually wore over those 3 years, but I don't reckon they had too many. So yeah, really cool to have those in the collection, and beautiful, beautiful jumper it is. Also got a 2019 Josh Kelly away player issue, so the exact same jumper they wore in the grand final. Josh didn't have an amazing grand final, but still a grand final year jumper, and a fantastic player as well, so stoked to have that into the collection. And the last 2 weeks I've managed to pick up 2 pretty big jumpers for the Freo collection. One being a long sleeve 2013 grand final player issue. I believe it may be the only long sleeve grand final jumper that was patched in existence. So really, really, really cool. And it was Nat Fyfe. So the reason it was probably done was because he was the only one that they were probably going to auction off, I would say. So Nat Fyfe long sleeve 2013 grand final jumper, and that is tremendously gorgeous jumper. I'm stoked to have that one as well. And the other one is a 2011 Matthew Pavlich match worn Clash jumper, which is signed on the front and back, but it has faded, but that's fine. One day I might even ask him to sign it, but not too worried about the signatures anyway. But beautiful jumper. And again, Dale Gavrilovich, if you're listening, owe you a massive thank you. He could have got it himself, but he passed that one on to me. He sent me the message and let me know about it. Told me to go for it, and I was able to organise to pick it up from Bunbury, from this guy, and got it for a great steal. So $130 I picked it up for, and that is an amazing pickup. Great price. Took me 4-hour round trip, but well worth it. It was a good drive. And yeah, great jumper to add to the collection. So Dale, thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate your help, and I owe you big time. that's it for all my pickups, I think. But that's all I'm going to mention because there's probably more, but that's all the big ones I've picked up in the last 8 weeks or so. So now I'm just going to go through some of the eBay stuff I've seen, which has been absolutely mental. I mean, there's no way that Corona has really affected what the quality of stuff that's coming out, because the amount and the quality of that has come out for sale has just been off the chain. It's incredible. So I'm just going to rattle through them real quickly. I'm not going to give you too much information about it all. And I've probably only saved a quarter of the amount of stuff that I have seen. So, all right, here we go. So in the sold category, so these are all the ones that have ended. Player issue Western Bulldogs 2018 Indigenous jumper, $225. A 2014 Melbourne Shannon Burns Heritage player issue, $203. There's been quite a few of those go up lately. As you can tell, a bit later on, the price drops drastically. 2001 Hawthorn Anthony Rock player issue. I was going after this one, but unfortunately outbid. Went for $256. A 1998 Ansett Cup Ben Dixon match worn Hawks as well, $370. 2002 Hawthorn Campbell Brown player issue, $305. A 2018 number 22 Clash West Coast Eagles Hamish Brayshaw player issue went for $143. A unworn 2015 signed player issue grand final Jack Gunston. So I'm not sure if I said Hawthorn or not, but Hawks jumper, $790. So definitely people out there are loving the grand final jumpers at the moment. 2012 home Nick Nat Nui signed player issue went for $510. Big dollars. A 2012 Adam Oxley Collingwood went for $81. A 2011 Heath Shaw long sleeve, beautiful looking jumper. So Collingwood jumper as well, $193.20. Good dollars for that. A Hawthorn Hawks 2013, well, they says 2013, but it's definitely a 2014. Originally it was, I don't know what that was, something just fell off the couch. Probably Milo. So it's a 2014, says 2013, so it was actually advertised as a buddy, but it's definitely not a buddy. It's an O'Brien jumper, and that went for $166.50. A Daniel McStay, so another one of the I would say prototype or sample Brisbane Majestic jumpers, 2008 went for $162. 2008 Port Adelaide match worn Damon White went for $300. So the Hawks jumpers certainly getting the Port jumpers certainly getting their max value without a doubt. 2018 Hawthorn Hawks player issue Sean Burgoyne, the Clash, $283. 2017 GWS player issue Canberra jumper Tim Moore went for $150. Oh, someone is at my front door. That'll be food. I'll be back in a minute. Sorry about that, folks. Uber Eats has just dropped off our dinner for the night, but Em's not home yet, so I'm going to continue doing this until she gets home. We got steak, if that's of any interest to you. I'm pretty excited to eat it, I'll be honest. Okay, so also 2019 Ryan Burton player issue, Port Adelaide home jumper, $230. The skinny numbered Hawks Jason Dunstall player issue or sample or prototype, not sure exactly. Definitely not what they wore that year as far as the number-wise goes. They actually were much fatter than this one. It's been around a few times. This one for $200. Still awesome jumper. A 1999 grand final. Now, this one was interesting. I messaged the seller and said, hey, mate, this is something wrong with this because the logo itself, great. The grand final logo looks good. Jumper itself looks good. But I reckon it was probably a spare, unnumbered player issue jumper. That was later put a number 5 on the back of it, but the number 5 looks terrible, looks dodgy as hell. So clearly not a match worn as they did mention in the advert, but hey, what can you do? Warn as many people as you can, and it still goes for $400. But as far as the front goes, it looks great. It does have the raised monogram, which is very nice, and of course the grand final logo on it. which back in 99 was quite different. It does look quite nice, so $400, hopefully happy with that. If you chuck it in a frame, I'm sure it'll look fantastic. Definitely not a match-worn jumper though, so hopefully you haven't gone into that thinking it was. A 2011 long sleeve player issue away Jonathan Griffin went for $153.50. That was a Dockers jumper, good to see. 2017 GWS player issue Canberra Jacob Hopper went for $96. Quite surprised that it went for quite a low price. He's a good little player, that Jacob Hopper. 2000 Fremantle Dockers Jason Norrish went for $214.50. Now the funny thing about this ad was they were advertising the frame and not the jumper. They were basically said in the advert that the jumper was of no interest to anyone. A bit sad to actually see that and hear that, but I certainly wasn't interested in the frame. It's a fantastic jumper from the 2000 season, and the home jumper. They're really nice jumpers actually. Quite different. They only wore that one for 1 year, so it was definitely a 2000. And yeah, Jason Norris was a great player for us as well. So I was hoping to get that, but I was outbid last second, unfortunately, so it didn't go hard enough. So $214.50, whoever got that would be great. There was two Essendon Bombers 2020 player issue Under Armour blue and a red training jumpers. They went for $110 each. They're really, really nice. So they're definitely prototypes. Had the number 25 on the back of both. But yeah, really, really nice. Good pickups. I believe Reece Mitchell got those. Congratulations to Reece. A few more to go. Well, it's quite a few more, so I'm going to skip through to some more important ones. A Hawks Luke Hodge 2016 player issue went for $325. James Hurd 05 Anzac long sleeve went for $250. A Tom Cole number 28 2018 West Coast Clash went for $250. Now a big one, a 1980, I believe 88 or 89. Not 100% on that. I'm going to say an 88 or 89, probably an 89, but yeah, not 100% on that. Went for $2,350. So West Coast, David Hart, late 80s. So it was the yellow. Went for $2,500 or $2,350. So a lot of people wanted that one, and it went for a lot of money. So if you out there have one of these original 1980s West Coast Eagles jumpers or players jumpers, you're sitting on a gold mine. A 2000-ish, I reckon it's probably 2001 Sean Wellman long sleeve went for $380. So good dollars there. A long sleeve 98 Western Bulldogs player issue with the one with the Orica logo, which is quite rare, but I've seen a couple pop up now in the last couple months. So yeah, cool to see. Number 19, not sure who the number is, but went for $173.50. Now, Allies jumper, I really was quite interested in this, but I was too busy at work and I just ran out of time to bid on it. An Allies 1998 State of Origin jumper, which was worn by Jason Mooney. Really cool jumper. Went for $255, so a really good pick up there to whoever picked that one up. Another one of the 2014 Melbourne Heritage player issue jumpers, James Harms, and as I mentioned, prices have started to drop now, so there has been quite a few of those got for sale recently. Went for $130.50. Also, 2015 Melbourne Cam Pedersen player issue, possibly match worn, went for $98. And that is all the solds. There is a lot more currently up for auction. I'm not going to go through them all again. There's Matthew Stokes 2014. And now I'm getting a phone call from Emma. So, everybody a beer. But I'm going to have to pick up this call and I will get back to you shortly. Alright, again, sorry about all that. This has been an absolute cluster of an episode, but I'm back with you. Dinner's been eaten, Emma's been taken care of, Milo's been fed, and the bins have been taken out, so I'm allowed to get back on the episode. So here we go, going again. Back to what is currently on eBay. So we'll start off with just a few short, easy ones before we just wrap up this episode here and now, because it has been an absolute cluster attempting to try and get it done in the middle of our living room. Having no studio has been making it rather difficult to do all this, so let's get on with it. So the 2014 Matthew Stokes Geelong jumper that I was mentioning just prior to Emma's phone call, it was a signed Indigenous round 1, is unworn, $200. There's a Daniel Kerr West Coast Eagles player issue jumper, a 2007 by the looks of it home jumper. It's currently $121 with 4 days left. Nick Nat Nui, 2013 I believe, away jumper, $155.50, 4 days left. A Carlton Adrian DeLuca 2006 player issue, 3 days left, $127.50. Sam Jacobs Carlton 2010 player issue, $235.50 with 3 days left. A Chris Yarron Nike 2013 Carlton player issue with 3 days left as well, $320. Brendan Goddard 2014 or 15, can't exactly be for sure. Player issue Bombers jumper, $128.50. A Tom Rockcliffe Port Adelaide jumper. Tom Rockcliffe Port Adelaide 2018 away player issue, $122.50, 2 days left. A 2015 match worn and signed David Mundy Fremantle Dockers home jumper. It's currently sitting at $182, 2 days and 13 hours left. It's a beautiful jumper. I used to own this jumper, so you know what it's like for me to give up a David Mundy jumper. So it is a beautiful, beautiful jumper. Jump on that if you can. A Josh Kennedy Sydney Swans 2014-15 player issue away jumper, $265 with a day and 13 hours left. And the Essendon long sleeve 2005 Anzac James Hurd jumper that I mentioned earlier that sold for $250 is back up for auction with 20 hours and 28 minutes remaining. It's currently sitting at $355. So someone's getting a good turnaround there, but it's also a beautiful jumper that everyone is very interested in. So jump on that if you are keen. That is it for today. A couple of little quick things I'll roll off is just we are making some t-shirts for the show. Originally, I just wanted to get some t-shirts done for myself that I could wear around or on the episodes that I record over Skype and probably to the footy, so get people looking at it. But Josh does work in a printing company in his day-to-day job. He's going to make up quite a few t-shirts for myself. And if any of you guys are interested in possibly purchasing a t-shirt, let us know. I'm not sure the exact price yet. And once I get a design from him, I'll chuck it up on the page and you guys can let me know if you're interested in possibly purchasing a t-shirt. Obviously be supporting the show to continue on and hopefully get yourselves a nice, decent looking design t-shirt as well. I caught up with another fellow collector just recently, Ruben Tan. He's a good West Coast Eagles fan, a former collector. I'm not sure he collects too much anymore, but really good man. He came along and had a look at my collection, and I was able to help him out with a TV that he was purchasing. But he came up with a really interesting idea, which I was quite excited about, that I kind of just flipped a little bit myself. But his basic idea was to hire out a room at the convention centre in Perth and have people come and bring their collections to this convention centre, this room, and put them on show basically and have people come along, pay some money to get in and have a look at your collections. Now that might not be so easy or something we could possibly do in the future, but it might not be that easy for the foreseeable future. Obviously Corona going on, and I'm not sure how I'd feel with putting my entire collection into a room and not having it on lock and key. So I'm not sure, but definitely something we could come up with, an idea for future. But something else that we could do in the meantime is a card page that I mentioned on here a few times, Eureka. They quite often will have these get-togethers. They'll have barbecues where they'll bring their cards and they'll trade and they'll just have a good day. So something like that, if we could do that, obviously we're in our respective states with the restricted bans and things on travel at the moment. Obviously, others getting from other states is not exactly a possibility. So if we could arrange something where we could do it within our own states, where we could do a catch-up and you can bring our own jumpers and our favourite jumpers, maybe, because I'm not taking 270 odd of my jumpers with me, but I'll certainly be willing to take a few of my favourite jumpers, and we could just have a great day out and we could have a barbecue and possibly do some trades or some sales on the day. Just the idea is really just to put a face to the names of all these guys that we've been able to talk to on these pages and just catch up and have a great day. It just opens up the world of collecting and and just the community that we've been able to build just opens that right up, and just, it brings us all much closer, and it just makes the community and the hobby much stronger. So if that's something that you're interested in, we can certainly start attempting to try and get something like that together. Whether you guys wanted to organise something in your respective states would be tremendous, and if we can help out all through the podcast page, then certainly let us know, and we can help you out with that as well. Alright, that's going to do it. Enough of me jibber-jabbering on today. If you want to follow the page, you can do so on Facebook, the Player Issue Podcast page, also my collection on AFL Guernsey Collection page. I also have a Instagram for the Player Issue Podcast as well. It's player_issue_podcast on Instagram. I also have a Dockers Collection page on there as well. Same format, just Dockers Guernsey Collection. Of course, if you can get onto Apple Podcasts and give us a rate and review, we'd really, really appreciate it. We have one written review on there, so we'd really like to see some more, get some of your feedback, and just hear some of your thoughts, and just see what you guys think of the show. And if you're feeling really generous, you can give us a 5-star rating as well. That'd be great. Really appreciate you guys listening week in, week out. Obviously, when we are able to get the episodes out, but you guys are really, really supportive of the show with your messages. And of course, just listening to it, we can see who does listen. So that's been really, really nice and really helpful for us to continue to do this and attempt to get on guests. And as I always say, if you're interested in coming on the show, drop us a message. Let us know on any of the pages that I mentioned previously, and we will see what we can do about getting you on. So hopefully it won't be too long until we get on another guest in a few weeks' time. Until then, enjoy the football. I'm very excited to have football back in WA this week. Can't wait to go to the Derby this weekend. And let's hope that your team does well, except for if you're a West Coast fan. Apologies, West Coast fans, but not this week. Anyway, that's going to do it for another episode of the Player Issue Podcast. Thank you again for your support, and we will see you next time. Thank you, goodbye, and good night.